Chip here with the XRP Minute. Tonight we're going to look at something pretty interesting. We are going to take a look at what it was like for technology to adopt going back to 1860s. How long did the adoption take? We're going to drill down deep on that. And we're also going to take a look at some other things. First of all, we're going to talk all about China tonight. Not really. We're not really going to hit too much on that. But there's a couple other cool things we're going to hit. And it all starts right now. Chip here with the XRP Minute. Welcome to Wednesday night, I think. This shelter in place has me calling it this day, that day, the other day. There's no discerning between the weekends. I don't even know where I am right now. I mean, I'm in a house. I'm in a planet, the third rock from the sun. That's all I know. Aside from that, I don't really know much. I got to go ahead and hit the start on the time because I got to figure out how long we're going to be doing this. Richter Farms. I want to call up some people. XRP Carolina, Vet Bro. And Wen Mullet, always big time supporter. Geo XRP, what's up? BZ Comedy Channel. Jade333 is cooking burgers. I can almost smell them through here because that sounds so amazing right now. Burgers, a bun, a Kimmelwick bun. If you came up from Western New York where I grew up, we had these Kimmelwick buns. They were phenomenal. Who else is in here? We have Jeff, co-host on the round table, and Jeff and Nick had an amazing stream last night. Man, it was phenomenal. And I think they went like an hour and a half. They were in digital nomad investor territory. I don't think we're going to get there tonight, guys, but we'll see what happens. I mean, what could happen? Anything could happen, right? So I just want to go ahead and ask you one favor. Go ahead and tweet this out, and we'll jump right into to this. Bra XRP's in here. What's up, Bra? What up, Bra? Good to see you. And there's my phone. It's on the floor. Bam, it's on the floor. Kick the cord, and what are you going to do? So let's jump, guys. Let's jump into this. I want to take us on a little journey tonight. We're going to go on this amazing journey because we've all been asking about adoption. Now, if we look at adoption from the standpoint of time and other entities, how long did it take? Well, let's take a look. So look at this right here. So technology adoption in U.S. households, 1860 to 2019. Now, we're going to look at this from a standpoint of global. I know this is U.S., but we're a global community. Let's think about, we're all in this together, right? COVID-19. Yes, we're down for that. Whoa, Papa Bear's here? Hello, Papa Bear, man. Papa Bear and I are in a chat, and it's so cool to see you here, man. Such a great honor for you to pop in here tonight. Connie's here. What's up, Connie? And what I want to do is I want to sort of take a look at how long it took, and then we're going to kind of figure this out. We're going to look at what does it look like when different tech and what is the adoption period. So let's look at this right here. Let's go to this next panel right here. So, and I'm covering it with my camera. Fantastic. So if we look at this right here, let's take a look at this. Let's go back. Let's take a journey back, get in our time machines. Let's head back to 1860, shall we? Now, back in 1860, not a lot of tech going on, right? So the flush toilet, as you know, was invented by Thomas Cracker. What's up, SubGod123? Crawfish XRP, calling you guys crypto and coffee. We have Nick. Nick, I just was talking about your epic stream last night. Let's take a journey back. We look at 1860 flush toilet, 1%. Okay, 1%. Now you got to look at the population in 1860. It's not 330 million people, right? But 1% of the elites could press the magic button, and they had a flush toilet invented by who? If you were playing along at home, Thomas Crapper. Let's take that journey. So as we start getting on, right, look at this, check it out. So now we get up to 1880. We start looking at some other tech going along the way here, right? And now, 1900, we have only, by the turn of the last century, we had only 15% adoption. Now you think, hey, 1900, it's only 120 years ago, but man, you imagine that 80%, let me do my math, 85, 15, carry the one, right? So if you look at that, 85% of the people didn't have a flush toilet. I don't like those odds. What's up, Jet Digital? What's up? 85%. Not good. So we didn't even start talking about, forget about, running water, electric power. This all comes a little bit later. So as we start going down, we start seeing it rise a little bit, right? The automobile comes along right around 1915. You start looking at what's the adoption of electric power, 10% back in 1910. We have this image that, it was old times, but everybody had this. No, nobody had it. This is the greatest thing ever. It's 120 years. If you parse the time, it's not that long ago, right? It's three generations ago. No, my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, came over, went through Ellis Island. He arrived when he was 11 years old. He was born in 1899, and luckily we have a picture of the 4 generations together. It was myself, my mom, my grandmother, and of course my great-great-grandfather. And, he used to tell stories about what it was like that. And when he came in, and back in, the turn of the century, he came over in 1900. And with a family friend, turns out they abandoned him in New York City. Luckily, there was a New York City population who spoke Italian. He was able to make his way. But look at this, 1908, landline, electric power, 21%. Let's continue the journey. So as we see the automobile come in, we see it start peaking around the 1900s, 1928. What happened in 1928? We see the crash, right? The Drake crash. And all of a sudden, the decline in automobiles. We're seeing the same thing now. Man, you can get an automobile almost, they're giving them away right now, right? So you start to see a little bit of a decline. However, the flush toilet, no, that's still on the rise. Now, 51% of households have adopted the flush toilet. Not bad, right? Let's take our journey. Let's keep going here. Now we start seeing some new things come in, like washing machines and running water. Again, we have this idea that running water was available forever. It really wasn't. So let's take a look. Let's take a journey. Let's start moving down the road, and then check this out. So the washing machine had the same kind of a peak in 1938-39, came back down, and you could see that right around, so this is wartime, right? 39, we get the World War II. A lot of resources are being put, so you don't have the metal available anymore, right? So it's amazing how conditions of the planet, what's happening on the planet at the time, will have an effect, much like today, the effect we're having now. Let's take a look. Let's continue our journey. Now look at this. Running water makes an epic surge, right? Starts down here, epic, and then bam, look at the line on this, right? Now we're thinking to ourselves, hey man, that hockey stick curve would be nice if we were looking at our crypto bags, right? You're holding BTC, you're holding XRP, whatever you're holding, it's a good thing. Let's continue the journey. Look at this. So now power is surging, right? Power starts back here, way back in 1908. You see it eclipses the threshold of 60%, levels off for a bit, and then as we get up to 1956, we are almost at 100%. Not yet, but we're almost at 100%. Let's head on this journey. Bam, bop, 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 bop. So you start to see that 100% hits there. Let's look at the refrigerator. By the year 1963, pretty much we've hit 100%. Look at the curve on that. It's amazing, right? It's a lot more pronounced than some of the stuff that took a long, long time. And like, for example, running water. People had refrigeration. The curve was a lot more condensed than we had here. Let's take a look. Keep going, blah, 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 blah. Let's keep going on here. Now we start getting into the 1990s. Look at this curve right here, right? Color TV. Now, if you're Nick Black and you got to call out boomers and say that anybody born in the 60s, it can't be trusted, well, then you got to look at that. You got to check yourself, man. Look at that. So let's look at the TV here. Where is the TV? Color TV. Bam, right there. Here we go. 1966. It goes from almost nothing to a little bit. It's inching up there, right? But it's almost non-existent in 1990. So it starts heading up. And then by 1977, you think about the 70s. Don't we think everyone had color TV? They didn't. Only 70-some percent, 75% had color TV. Then we start moving the journey along a little bit more. Then the computer comes into play. Check out the curve. So what we're taking a look at right now is we're looking at, as time goes on and as technologies move on, newer tech takes less time to adopt, right? For the mass adoption. Look at the curve on this. You've got the computer coming into play in the 1990s. Now, the personal computer happened much sooner. They start the curve here because this is when they started collecting the data. Now, we could go back closer to when Apple rolled it out and Microsoft back in the early 80s, but the adoption was so incredibly low, they weren't collecting data on it yet. But if you look at the data point here, 20% had adopted the computer, and this is in 1992. As we start looking at this peaking in 1997, you see in a very short period of time we hit 60%. Let's continue the journey, shall we? Oh, now what do we see? Well, we see landlines decreasing. The landline is decreasing. Why is that? Well, it's because we have a big time surge. Where's our, holy cow, where is it here? So look at the tablet right here. Look at the line on the tablet. The tablet shot right up. I mean, look at this right here. If you look at the tablet, it goes from almost 0 to 60. It's just an amazing growth right there. It's nearly a straight line. Then you got the ebook reader. Now ebooks were really popular, mid 2010, somewhere in that neighborhood, and then they've kind of curtailed a little bit. They're not huge. They're not overly that excited about that. Crypto better mainstream adoption before teleportation becomes the norm. Listen, I'm with you on that one, Jeff. I got to say. But the Fed governors definitely didn't have colored TV. They had dinosaurs for pets. They were designing the early shoes, and they knew Adam Smith personally. That all may be true, but you got Mr. Boomer right here. Hey, Boomer, you got this Boomer right here. And you know what, Nick Black? I hope you look as good as I do when you turn 75, because you know what? You got to do some things, man. You got to do some things in the interim. I'm not really that. I'm just having a little bit of fun here. So if we continue this trend and we start looking at stuff, the microwave's funny. The microwaves were super popular. Everybody had to have them. Now, I remember our household had one in the 60s. My parents owned the delicatessen in New York called what? Chip's Deli. Damn straight it was called that. In the 1960s. What's up? We got a $14.99 bomb from XRP Carolina. Chip, my brother, keep up the great work. Appreciate all that you and Jeff and on the chain contributors are doing for the space. And I will add to that, Nick, I will add Digital Nomad Investor, and of course our own very Jerry Hall. So thank you so much for that. Man, that's awesome. I know you dropped a $15 bomb last night too. Thank you, XRP Carolina. As you guys know, he's also a contributor on the channel. Let's jump back into this. So, I'm not going to bore you too much with the statistics, but I want you to start thinking in terms of adoption, right? You see the trends, you see how long it's taken. We go back to 1860. Now let's jump on some newer tech. So let's go to this. Let's look at some other things here. These are some static ones, just because. Okay, so let's look at podcasting, for example. Now, podcasting really came into its own in the early, about mid to 2005 or something like that. And you see that it's kind of making a resurgence. I expect that number to start shooting up even more. Okay, look at social media. Social media started in the mid 2000s. If you look at it, maybe 5-6%. With the emergence of Twitter, Facebook, it's around 2004, 2005 era, and look at it shoot up. Bam, almost 75% of people adopting it. Now, the internet was a little bit slower of growth, but you can see right now, we all assume in the US and worldwide everybody has internet access. No, they don't. Let's look at the phone, for example. The cellular phone back in the 70s when it first got its start had a little bit of a slow start. I actually had one of these car phones back in the 90s, early mid 90s. Man, what a piece of garbage that was, and the rates were ridiculous, right? But look at the adoption period from 1980, 80% adoption into the 90s, and then it kind of tapered off. We haven't quite hit 100%. I'm not even sure about this as 100% spot on, but of course too is mobile technology is not all reliant on cells. Cellular technology is old, so I have a feeling they're only looking at the one piece of it. And then look at power steering. Power steering sort of hit its peak back in the 80s. But back in the 60s, 70s, none of those cars had the power steering in it, right? So I guess where we're going with all this is if we start looking at crypto, we look at the advent of Bitcoin. Okay, it's 11 years ago. We're like, man, 11 years ago, that seems like ancient history, right? And if we look at, let's say, some of our newer tech like XRP, we look at Ethereum, and Vitalik Buterin, he actually tried to intern. Jade, what's up? A $20 bomb, not even a comment or anything. Give me something to read. Man, that's phenomenal. Thank you, Jade. I super appreciate that. That's phenomenal. $19.99. Give me something to read. What's up? Just something, anything. Give me something, a quote. How are those burgers coming along, by the way? By the way, Jade was announcing earlier she's cooking burgers. I got a little, how your stomach starts that little growling thing going? Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys' support of this channel. So let's get back to this. When we start thinking about the curve and we start looking at what technology looks like, now compare these graphs going back to the 1860s. We're talking about running water. We're talking about electricity. We're talking about the automobile. We're talking about all these little things. It took longer, but as time goes on, we start seeing the adoption trend move up, right? This is actually a very sophisticated movement when we think about, look at the 80s, and let's look at all this stuff. Let's look at the microcomputer. Let's look at smartphone usage, how that just popped up, right? So the smartphone came out, this is a little bit misleading data, but again, this is when they started collecting it. It had already almost hit high 30s, 36, 37%, according to this graph right here. If you think about what they were actually looking at here, it's a straight line, pretty much. We had a little cutoff here, but check it out, the smartphone usage. It's phenomenal what we're seeing here. So what I want to do is I want to draw parallels as we move from 1860 all the way up to present day in 2020. Look at everything's starting to compress, okay? And as stuff compresses, and I want to let you guys know tomorrow on the other channel, I want to know if you can drop this in there. Is it possible to drop the other channel in here? Most of you guys have probably already subbed anyway, but drop the other channel in here because Nick Black's putting out an amazing video tomorrow that answers some of these pressing questions we look at. Anyway, I want you guys to watch this video. I've already had the privilege of watching it, but it drops tomorrow at 7. I want you guys to check that out. When we start looking at compressed timelines in this whole equation, we are going to see the same thing with cryptocurrency, right? We're going to see the same thing. Now everyone's going like, well, when moon? When are we going to moon? When is it going to be? I know we all have those burning questions, but if we already have identified that Bitcoin is it's the digital gold, right? They're starting to do more and more stuff. I saw a whole bunch of stories. Not that we're going to get into it here because we're just pressed for time, but I saw some things in the last week or two about Bitcoin that's making some cool stuff. There's some stuff that's being built around Bitcoin that I think is pretty exciting. We're not going to jump into it here, but I want to say that the more we start seeing the innovations and what's happening in DeFi, the decentralized finance, and decentralization period, we're starting to see a lot of growth. And if we look at 11 years as being a long time, we look at the Bitcoin halving is coming up, where I think we're less than 30 days away from it. You look at the adoption that's happened, and really, nobody knows about it. I think in the US alone, it's like 1% maybe of people that know. I actually had a really cool chart. I actually lost it because I had it up. But it was detailing the countries and the percentage, and the US is really low on that chart. But you see a lot of countries over in Asia, that even Chile, I was surprised, that had 10% adoption in the whole thing. So let's just move right along. So the parallel we're drawing, I started looking for solid data. There's not really good data, and I kind of doubted the data a little bit as far as being able to display it and show it, because if I don't trust it, I don't want to be able to tout it, right? But what I do know is the timelines are compressing in 11 years, and when we started seeing our first altcoins, right, we are right up in it. And what I was saying about Nick Black's video that you guys got to watch is the fact that he starts talking about where is the safe haven. All the stuff is burning down around us. Where are we going to find a safe haven? Well, I got a hint for you. It's digital assets, right? Let's pop into this right here. So we've seen a little bit of this today. Saw guys like Ivan on Tech talking about this. I've seen this pretty much everywhere. Does anybody remember Crypto Mom touting, from the SEC, touting that they were going to go ahead and they were proposing that you could build on the blockchain, and you wouldn't be penalized. And as long as you built something in a token within 3 years that was decentralized, hey, you know what? As my buddy Bruce used to say, everything's a good idea until somebody has to do something. Do you know how this is? Everybody, you're hanging out with your friends, right? And you're like, hey, let's do this. Yeah, let's do it. And what happens? They're like, well, who wants to take the first step? And everyone's like, oh my God, look at the time, man. Oh, geez, I gotta move along. It's like everything's a great idea until someone actually has to lift a finger, has to do something. This happens in business all the time. Everyone has great ideas to suggest for other people to do. Here's what I look at the G20 watchdog issues, right? Is it any surprise that that central banks don't like stable coins? I mean, where's the surprise here? Look at this, quick take. Financial Stability Board, FSB, and the G20 supervisory body has issued 10 high-level recommendations for regulating stable coins. Oh, okay. Let's look at this one. Central banks recommend to ban stable coins. Oh no, not ban. Think about this. I mean, for real. This is the kind of stuff that gets released, never gets followed upon. It never sort of like makes its way anywhere. This is just complete and utter trash. Now, if there was a solid proposal on the table, yeah, okay, fair enough. But the central banks push for heavy-duty regulation. Beat the chest. We want regulation. We need it, right? This is like intimidation. Falls along the line of heavy suggestions, and all the news, anyway, call them news. Let's just say the trade journals, all the crypto journals pick it up. Privately issued global stablecoins and consider, everyone's flipping out, but they're considering prohibiting decentralized ones. Well, why is that? Why do we want to get rid of the decentralized ones? And why are we worried about it? And by the way, why aren't the central banks creating their own stable coin, right? If you're gonna prohibit anything, why would you start attacking the decentralized stable coins? Fiat pegged cryptocurrencies are coming under scrutiny based on recommendations from the Financial Stability Board. And again, you're probably asking yourself, what? Hey, Brady Niels, what's up? What's up, Brady? Good to see you. Yeah, stable coins, right? So everyone's flipping out and they're freaking out. And look, we don't have to get into the whole article here, but the FSB is an international entity that provides suggestions on the global financial system. And who do you think is providing those suggestions? Oh, could it be the central banks? Well, it might be. So the recommendations are to be presented before an audience of G20 countries who don't care, number one, and reference the stable coins USDT, USDC, TUSD, PAX, and DAI, right? Those are what they're looking for. So, I look at this stuff right here, and it's all it's a much ado about nothing. It's all a bunch of garbage. They're talking about something. Somebody in a regulatory body has said this. Well, great. Let's get back to, this goes in line with all the things we see about cryptocurrency regulations. Everybody flips off for 3 days on the Twitters and the YouTubers, and everyone goes nuts, and then it's back to, oh, nothing happened. Big shock and surprise. Let's jump in. Chip, I have got some unstable coin for you, some Yeti unstable coin, and damn it, I'm all in for that, Jeff. I'll take some of that all day long. Nick says they have to make these stable coins illegal. It creates a lot of currency credit risk. Solid, Nick. Right on par. It sure does. I liked a couple of these. So I saw a couple of people on the Twitter universe, or the Twitters. This is Gons right here. He says cryptocurrency's market cap is under 200 billion as of now, but central banks are scared of losing power. They're trying to install laws to ban stablecoins. Why? Because they want to issue their own CBDC, central bank digital currency. I mean, that's one take on it. That may be part of it. They put a little bit of FUD out there and freak a little people out. It could be one of the things, right? Wait a minute. Did I have another thing here? I'm sure I did somewhere. I'll probably jump back into it because I had another one, but they're out of order. Anyway, so here's some leaked images. Now, this is something that's been making the rounds on the Twitters as well. Leaked images show China reportedly, this is what I liked, reportedly testing mobile app for digital currency. Hey, I wonder who actually leaked the images, right? Nothing gets leaked unless it's intentional or whatever, right? So according to the South China Post, an anonymous source tells the SCSP, doubts are going up right as we speak. It's supposed to be confidential at this stage, but the leak offers the first look into what China's digital currency may look like for the general public. All right, so already I have some doubts about this, right? Let's take a look at this. You guys have all probably seen this image, Baba Raga or Yaga Laba Raba, whatever it is. Anyway, he tweeted this out there, and hey, somebody was nice enough to put the English subtitles. This is scan to pay transfer, and what this is. So you put the banknote up here, right? And you put some QR codes. Now, I don't know anywhere where this states that this is actually going to be a payment system based on blockchain. There's nothing to where you go ahead and insert the actual cryptocurrency. What is that? Oh, is it the Chinese yuan? Nobody knows. So they leak this image. I'm not saying it was nefarious by any ways, but I'm just saying convert, manage your wallets. Well, you know what? The digital dollar, you can manage a wallet too. Yeah, it looked like a gift card. That's pretty much what that looked like, right? So as we start looking through this, so the app will allow users to pay merchants for goods and services by scanning a barcode. So what? I can scan a Venmo card, app. I go into anywhere. Like you want to tip somebody, you can scan the Venmo and you pay them something, right? Venmo is something in the U.S. It's done by PayPal. Now, does that mean if I scan a barcode, does that mean necessarily that I'm using cryptocurrency? Not necessarily. So, again, this is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of speculation going on here. And not that it's bad. I mean, everybody's going crazy with, China jumping on the bandwagon. So last month, according to the article, central banks started reportedly working closely with Chinese tech giants, Alibaba, Tencent, and Huawei. Yeah, maybe. Okay, but I've seen this all over the place. Comedian Carl Lewis, what stream would be complete without the giggle monster Carl Lewis? What's up, Dan, the XRP man? Good to see you guys in here. Okay, so let's move along here. I'll probably have some of these out of order. So Kraken exec says that BTC could soar to $2 million in massive super cycle. Here's why. Now, what I've seen a lot of recently, and I saw somebody recently I'm seeing a lot more of this in recent articles, that you see the crypto gods out there known as the crypto trades. What they're doing is they're like listening to YouTubers like myself, maybe some other people out there, and they're getting an idea. So in a YouTube stream with Lark Davis, otherwise known as the Crypto Lark, Dan Held explains why he thinks Bitcoin's time has come. He says we've got a halvening. We've got a huge macro backdrop where banks are literally printing $1 million a second, which happened a few weeks ago with the U.S., the Fed and the Treasury, and so on. But there could not be a better moment for Bitcoin than now. I've waited 8 years to see this. And I don't think he's wrong necessarily, but I'm not sure it's exactly Bitcoin. I think it's really all digital assets together, right? And again, if you watch the Nick Black video, you started getting some background on this, because when the purge happens, what the purge is, when you lose everything and your value is dropping and people are getting out, you got to figure out where you're going to go ahead and put a safe haven, right, for that money. So I like this article. Now, $2 million, listen, I think at some point it could get there. It's feasible. It doesn't have to be the number. I'm not so concerned with the number, but I think that in this article, Dan Held is spot on what he's talking about. And I think that we're all going to be beneficiaries of this. Why? Because we are the early adopters, right? We're the ones people told us we were stupid. It's like, dude, seriously? And how about the people you told about XRP? Let's talk about these people. Hey, man, XRP, it's awesome. I love it. It's great. And guess what happened? We saw it sink, and then it was, what if you're one of the people that said when it was at 285, man, you got to jump in on this, and then they watched it go to 50, then 20, and all the way down to 0.10, right? And now they're ones laughing at you, having a good laugh at your expense. It doesn't matter, because you're a believer in utility. You did your research. You watched the Twitterverse. You started looking at articles, but you started discerning the difference between, everybody should own some Bitcoin or a Bitcoin or more. You should hedge your bet. I don't, because I got involved because of a cartoon bear. Seriously, true story. Cartoon bear who made a resurgence. Bearable Guy 123. And by the way, Bearable Guy BG Brad Garlinghouse. Oh, that's weird. Everyone's made that. But anyway, and a Riddler. That's it. I mean, if you got a, and I've always said this, if you have a good cartoon and you got a token out there, I'm all ears. If you got a cool like aardvark, if you got a Yeti, I'm into Yeti coin just for that reason alone, right? We had a question here. Is there no other YouTuber but Chip? And is there? Is there no? I don't know what that means, but no, there are no other YouTubers. That's it. No, I don't know. I'm not sure if I understand the question. It's a lot to understand, but anyway, Wendell, I appreciate you. If I see the red flopping on my eyes, I'll go ahead and answer it. Let's go here and let's go to the next one. So this is the one I want to get to before. This is Dan. What is with these YouTube? What is with the names? So if your name is at, let's look at this. Let's look at this a little bit. If your name is Da Vinci J15, you can make this name anyway. Anyway, he says everyone's screaming about the. Hang on, let me put this regular size again. Screaming about the stablecoin ban recommendation. A recommendation is far away from the law. Oh, that's an excellent point, Da Vinci. I recommend Prima Nocta for all bank CEO because, well, we're getting effed by them financially. Why not? Literally. I don't see both being passed anytime soon. Yeah, this isn't about, this isn't raising the stakes because you're going to pass it. It's just starting to put it into the consciousness. Put it out there. See how it lands. See if there's a little bit of panic in this space. Let's jump on to here. So China, look at this. Here's another one. China set to launch its national blockchain platform next week. Okay, so as we've been hearing for some time, there's been a huge run up to this where China, their government is set to launch its national blockchain platform on April 25th. Now, this initiative led by the Chinese government agency, the State Information Center, otherwise known as the CHICOMs, Chinese Communist, aims to help companies by deploying blockchain applications faster and cheaper. High cost of deployment, operation, and maintenance structures. So basically what they're doing is they're launching this national blockchain where companies can get involved and people can basically use this, right? Cost about roughly $14,000 to build a traditional three-peer consortium blockchain local style network environment. And the association added that the BSN would sharply reduce that cost to about $2,000 to $3,000, which is roughly around $280 to $245 a year, to form a chain and become operational. But who's running that blockchain, right? It's like, yes, it's cheaper, it's better, it's faster, but it's all state run. So anyway, it'll be curious and interesting for us. And interestingly enough, is there going to be adoption? What are companies inside? Will they have something to coax them into doing it? Or will it be something where they can choose it, right? Because they can always choose other things as well. That's going to go on, right? And I guess we'll have to see how the adoption happens. But again, it's state run. So this is like if, let's say, the EU came out and said, we've got an approved blockchain. We've issued it. We think it's a good idea that you guys all jump on it, right? And it's basically run by some non-elected officials in Belgium who are dictating how the world revolves and works, right? So in this case, you have something being put out that's state-run, that's a blockchain where they've reduced costs. I mean, really, what are costs to them? There really are no costs. I guess you got to pay something. You got to have a little skin in the game. But again, it's like the U.S. coming out and saying, we've got an official blockchain. What's up, Alex Yeek? Hello, Alex Yeek. Good to see you, man. So I wanted to talk about this because in a world where everything's burning down, right? In a world, we don't even see movies anymore. You can't go to the movies, but in a world where the world is breaking, right? Where there's zombie apocalypse. We said it couldn't happen. Man, I don't know. I mean, if people start turning into zombies after this, we don't know. But I saw this hit my inbox this morning, and I got to tell you, this was a breath of fresh air. And you guys all know about GitHub. GitHub is a repository for computer code. Over 65% of the internet's code is stored on GitHub. Whoa, that doesn't sound like a great idea. But anyway, so I've got a couple different accounts with GitHub for uploading code and, basically branching stuff. So a lot of open source stuff is built there. You can branch it, you can fork, you can do all kinds of cool stuff. But this is really impressive. I got to say, in GitHub, if you didn't know, it was acquired a couple years ago by Microsoft. And I got to say, they've been doing some pretty stellar. Did someone say stellar? XLM? No. It was just an off reference, but you got to realize that this never happens. And I've talked about this before. You're not sitting there one day and somebody knocks on your door and it's like, "Hey, Chip, who are you?" "I'm a government official. Listen, got some good news. We don't really like the fact that you're paying all these taxes, and we want to reduce them by 50%. You're like, what? That never happened. So this is along the lines. Now, I had an email. Their email is actually better written, but I'm not going to jump through all my email boxes. But I want to show you this because when is it that something gets reduced? So what they've done here is April 14th, as of yesterday, they announced that all the core GitHub features are free for everyone. Wow. That's pretty cool. And so some of the paid plans, now the Pro will include 2 gigs of packages, storages, and 10 gigs of data transfer. I know this all might seem like crazy, blah, blah, blah stuff to you, but I want you to know that when the world is burning down with this COVID-19, we're all sheltered in place, and we can't go anywhere, this company took some serious action, and they reduced it. Like this one here, the Pro reduced to a price of $4. One of them was like seven down to 4. This one here, the teams are down to price of 4. And that was from 9. That's more than a 50% cut. And again, this never happens. I also like the fact that they also opened up the free for everybody. And it includes repositories for unlimited users. Wow. I gotta say, take my hat off to GitHub. These guys are doing incredible things. Usually I get stuff in my inbox like, "Hey Chip, we know you've been a really good customer, but hey, we got an interesting idea. We're gonna raise this price, or we're gonna, we've had an influx of XR, whatever it's gonna be, X and Y, and we want to do this." So when I saw this was a welcome event here. This was fantastic. So let's go over to another thing here. So guys, when it all burns down, what do we have to do? Well, there's another Earth-like planet. It's a habitable planet. It's found in the early NASA Kepler data. Let's take a look at this, right? So this is pretty fascinating. Let me move this out again. Where am I? Where's the corner? Where's the corner here? There it is. Bam. Okay. But look at this right here. So this planet right here, Kepler 1649c, this one is 1.06 times the size of Earth. Okay. Now I'm looking at this, and of course this is, I don't know if it's an artist rendering. We don't really know, right? But I'm like, you know what? I don't know. The one on the left looks a little bit better to me. It's blue. It looks pretty good. I mean, I gotta say, it looks fantastic, right? I gotta look at that and say, so this is the comparison, right? Now, I think there was another, yeah, so here's the rendering, okay? Wow, that looks like in the middle of a desert somewhere. That doesn't look like a lot of fun either. I'm like, here's an illustration of what it could look like. So does that mean this is the rosy picture of what it looks like? So I started thinking, like, this is great in case it all goes south and keeps going south. We got to find a way to get to Kepler 1649. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. One of the things about when NASA puts out these articles, they always put in here about, like, where is it and all this stuff. All I wanted to find out in this whole article is like, wait, how long is it going to take us to get there? I think it's really too far away. Guys, a little bit of Apple news. I'm an Apple freak and nuts, right? So this is weird. Apple's iPad Pro Magic Keyboard arrives next week ahead of schedule. It's weird because the supply chains have all been kind of crushed and put off. What this will allow you to do, if you got an iPad Pro, basically what you're able to do is turn that into like what used to be called a MacBook Air, let's say a Pro. They're doing it is now, there's always been a keyboard available, but with this, they're adding a trackpad, okay? So they're essentially turning it into it. Now, before you could kind of navigate, you'd be touching the screen, like, pointing out here, navigating, and then back to the keyboard. This is like a real sort of a trackpad. So this is kind of coming very soon, which I like, guys. And I mean, if you're not an Apple fan, so what? I mean, you got to be an Apple fan. Once you go Mac, you never go back. You know the saying. And then let's take a look at this. Let's go look at this here, okay? We've got this. This is now I was gonna dig mine up. I think I know exactly where this is, but it's not fun if I don't power it up for you. But I have the original iPod. The iPod that came out looked like this. Gosh, man, it looks like at the time it was like, man, it's a touchpad and I can move it around. So what this is right here, you're not gonna hear any sound because I'm gonna talk over this. But what you're gonna, there we go. Yeah, dancing. Now if you guys, oh, you are going to hear some sound. Hang on a second. Let me just draw that. So remember this. This was the early sort of. They're kind of playing with the commercial a little bit, but the early days where they had all these people dancing silhouetted, right? So now they come out with this thing called the iBoy. Well, what the hell is the iBoy? Well, it looks like the iconic iPod, but they call it the iBoy. So they've got these little pieces that you can sort of magnetic joints, a little magnetic, put the feet on, the toys. And I'm like, I collect vinyl toys. I think this right here has got to be something that's got to be in my, definitely got to have something to do with this right here. So here you go. You can hook this puppy up. It's got a real working plug. I mean, you can't listen to it, right? But it's got a really working plug and everything. And I like the idea that, well, come on, it doesn't move like that. Let's not be crazy now. It doesn't. What's up, Passionate Rick? You had your first iPad in 2006. So, Passionate Rick, did you buy the first gen? Apple II Plus was the last product I used. Well, that's sad, I am, because that was a piece of garbage. I had an Apple II, and basically I turned it on, and that was pretty much all I did. I turned it on, and I saw the green screen, It wasn't until and I wish I had my Apple II CX that I bought in 1992, paid $7,200 for it. And yeah, so I was like, man, for $7,200 today, it buys you a pretty banging computer these days. But anyway, they had this other one too. Yeah, they do some pretty fun little updates and stuff, based on the old Apple iconology right there. So let's look at here. There he is, our little pal. So it looks like that. There's the old, the original Mac, which also I remember working on that too, the black and white one. Then they came out with color. Don't get crazy, Nick. They had color for the boomer generation. Those people that were born before color TVs. What do you do with those? And big shout out to Connie. Connie, what's up? How are you doing? I hope you're staying safe out there. A Zune. Oh my God, I remember the Zune. Oh wow, a Zune. Holy cow! I don't think I've uttered that in 15 years. That's incredible. Remember that? You still have your Zune. So Brady, does your Zune work? Please tell me it works. I do have to fire my stuff up. Be curious to see what I'm listening to back in the day. I actually have 2 iPods. I also bought a black one when that was in favor, and that was a pretty cool one as well. So it was 120 gigabyte Zune, second battery, and second. So what era was that you got the Zune? And damn it, why didn't you buy yourself an iPod? And then you remember when they came out, those little mini iPods, they were like the little stick things, and then they came out with the clip-ons. You could clip that sucker on. I think Jeff's talked about that before, but you clipped it on, and it just had enough to go running with. But now you got a watch, you got it in your pocket. I mean, now you got the, you got your AirPods. You have them all. It's gotten so cool, right? Maybe I'll just put these photos in my office just because they're fun, Again, you can plug in a little plastic replica of, there it is right there. Oh, look, it plugs in. Remember this? Had this weird plug on it back in the day? Yeah, it was kind of weird. Look at that. You can sit on your back. He's doing, I don't know, exercise. I don't know what the hell he's doing right there. But the iPod Shuffle, that's what it was called, Jeff. That's right. The iPod Shuffle, I just put it on there. Didn't have a lot of functionality, but it was tiny back in the day. It was pretty cool, right? It was pretty cool. Let's jump back out here. So I want to go, thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. Oh, don't worry. We're not done yet. We got a little bit of ways to go, but there's nothing really more to show you. But I wanted to ping you guys on what the big story of the week is that you're excited about out there. Is there anything exciting? I mean, we heard the Western Union, and from what I could ascertain from the Western Union story, it was like somebody pulled up a paper from January that said they're testing it. So what? We knew that 2 years ago. And until we start seeing volume, it's just a fun fact, right? Hey, fun fact, Western Union, it might be testing it. Western Union's always asserted in the past that, well, we've looked at it, we didn't like it, we thought it was interesting. But you know what? The same way the banks will use XRP, one of the things that banks are really into, it's called making money. They're looking at bottom line and profits, right? If they can figure out a way to charge a little bit less. Let's suppose for what you're going to move money. Let's suppose they would cut it in half by 50%. But let's say that they cut out the time and get it there in 4 seconds, and they don't have to worry about 3-4 days later doing the settlement, and all of a sudden it's instant. Oh, and by the way, it's a couple drops. Now, we've got something to talk about. So when people start talking, putting the FUD out there, well, the banks won't really use this because they have Swift, and Swift will do it in 13 seconds. Yeah, it'll make the memo in 13 seconds. However, it does not do the settlement. So what good is it? It's like, yeah, well, look, from A to B in 13 seconds, doesn't matter. It's all about the settlement. Now, Ripple's been the top dog, right, with their software and being able to integrate banks. But what we're going to see and what I see coming is the fact that you're going to see a lot more, probably less institutional use and probably more, probably consumer use. You're going to see more apps being wrapped around the XRP ledger. You're going to see more consumer-based things doing and moving money. Yeah, there's always going to be the institutional, and that's what XLM was all about. When Stellar, when Jed McCaleb, when he left and he went out there, it's like this camp we had Ripple, and this camp we had, Stellar, and they were going to do consumer-based stuff. And the sad thing is there are some pretty cool projects out there that basically leverage, the token XLM, and you don't really hear too much about them. But, if you do a little bit of research, you'll notice that there are some pretty cool projects out there. And I'm not talking about IBM. There's some other cool projects out there. Whale Rider says, if MoneyGram could get the market makers to meet their desires, Western Union would have something to think about. That's exactly right. And it takes time to open quarters. That's a good point, Whale Rider, because it takes a little bit of time to be able to open quarters. Now, when MoneyGram was moving money into Mexico, you can't scale too fast, and it doesn't matter what kind of tech you're using. The scale of tech, the hardest thing you'll ever do is scale it, right? If you build something that can scale quickly, at some point you hit a legacy point. And if you're trying to do remittances from anywhere into Mexico, I think they capped out at under 20%. Well, it takes time. You got to build the infrastructure, right? And then, of course, too, it doesn't probably help, or I wouldn't say it hurts necessarily, but having, XRP hovering around the 19-20 cent mark US doesn't make it any better, right? So Nick from Nick Crypto and Coffee, by the way, go sub. If you guys click on Crypto and Coffee right there to get those little 3 dots, you'll be able to go sub to Nick Black's channel. He puts a lot of content out there. I want you guys to go check it out and sub it right now. But he says none of these money transfer companies will exist in a couple years. Money will transfer for free. It's a zero-sum game. Western Union dies, MoneyGram dies, PayPal dies. And you might have a point there. I don't know if they die necessarily. I think they transform. But, your point is that if you look at the last people to know, if you're old enough to remember a company called Blockbuster, they had a chance to buy Netflix at one point. They're like, oh, no, we're cool. We like renting out stuff. By the time they flipped the switch to get into the game where they were renting back in the day, or they were, I don't even remember what the name of they call. What do they call it? Not DVDs, right? So they're renting DVDs. By the time they flipped the switch, they were already dead. And the problem is with a lot of the companies, and the point that Nick Black's making here is that on the adoption curve, usually the company that's last to adopt, they're the last ones to know. And by the time they know, it's too late. Now look at what Amazon did to a lot of retailers, right? They put Toys R Us out of business. And really the bigger one was more toys were sold at Walmart's than they were at Toys R Us. When you go specialty, you have a specialty type item, you got a brick and mortar, you got high cost, you have high transportation costs. But when you're a company that can do better deals and engineer stuff from China and bring it in, you certainly have a better modus operandi, right? You can definitely come in and then and turn the clock on that. XRP Hollywood, what's up? Crusaders fan says, I think Western Union are realizing that their settlement is not as good as MoneyGram using XRP. And that's true. But however, if you look at Western Union compared to MoneyGram, look, MoneyGram is not doing well. They were in trouble when Ripple invested in them. They're carrying a lot of debt. It had a lot to do with some of the bad investments they made. They were really leveraging a lot of stuff early on. So if you go back to 2010 and later, they were just trying to diversify to the point of where it almost destroyed the company, because if you get into mortgage-backed securities and you started getting a lot of stuff, it really hurt them and it really became their downfall. So the one part they were looking to diversify and build the company almost ended up destroying the company. And Western Union's not really that's afraid per se, But look, everybody knows enough now. If you're in 2020 and you've seen all the things go by the wayside, you know and have a feeling that you have to be aware. You have to look at yourself. You got to do a self check and say, hey, what am I missing? What's in my blinders right now that I'm not noticing? But even if you try to do that from the inside looking out, you can have consultants. You can handle or hire all the people you want. It doesn't necessarily matter. You have to be able to say, what are your deepest threats? And right now, Western Union is like, we're top dog. But you know what? How long? Before they all start going, if it costs a couple of drops, why do I need Western Union? And as you look at what's happening in Africa, you look at the adoption with phones, and you look at the adoption of sending money back and forth, they bypassed the whole sector. They forget about banks. They went ahead and bypassed that whole thing. Why? Because they didn't need that curve. They didn't need to ride it up only to jump to something else. They bypassed it altogether. And as we look at other tech emerging, I think Nick Black brings up a really good point here. If I can go ahead right now and let's say Crusaders fan, and I say, hey, I want to send you equivalent of 100 USD, but I send it to you in XRP, you get it in 3 seconds, you cash it out. Why do we need MoneyGram, right? Well, for now, in Western Unions of the world, for now, we need them because there's a populace that doesn't know this yet. Remember when we talked about us being early adopters, the 1%ers? It's actually less than that. You look at 330 million people, it's a 0.04%. It's like almost a 0.5% of people that know about this, right? All your friends and family that you told about this that are laughing, they're like, they call you stupid and everything else. And every once in a while I get a text from my brother like FXRP, followed by a smiley face. And I'm like, man, it's on sale. I always like, right now, when you look at what's happening in the marketplace with the stocks, look, man, sometimes people are always wondering, they're like, when is this going to be affordable for me, the little guy? I can't afford it. And then everything goes on sale, and they're like, whoa, everything could crash and burn in a heartbeat. I'm not touching that. And all of a sudden, you see it go back up, right? What is Jeff saying here? Mainstream will continue to use apps to move money and won't ever care what technology powers it. That's a fantastic point, Jeff, because think about that. Nobody cares what's powered in the background. We're all like XRP, XLM. We're all in the crypto space, and we're like, when, moon. But you know what? Do you think Aunt Betsy cares? She doesn't know. She got a smartphone. She used to have a flip phone. She picks it up. She looks at it. She goes, hey, I can use an app. I download it. You download it to Aunt Betsy's phone, and she goes ahead and she sends money to somebody. I'm going to send little Jimmy a Christmas gift or whatever, And she sends him a little something, something, you know what I mean? Gives him a little something. What happens? Well, I'll tell you what happens. Jimmy's ecstatic, right? Because he's 14. He already has the app, or, mom or dad or somebody has the app, and he gets it. Now, do you think Aunt Betsy cares that it was hooked up to her bank account, and then it was going ahead and using the XRP ledger. It was converting to XRP 3 seconds, 4 seconds on the other side, or whatever it's using, whatever token. And then 4 seconds later, little Jimmy has it, and he's all ecstatic. Now, he's pretty impressed, number one, that Aunt Betsy's using the app, but she needed a little bit of help, right? She didn't just come out of the box with it. Aunt Betsy goes to church the next day, starts telling all of our church friends, hey, man, I got an app, and what do I do, and how is it? Now, we're seeing really what's happening is the evolution of adoption. However, it doesn't look like we thought it would, right? It doesn't look like, wait, cryptocurrency and blockchain. No, Aunt Betsy downloaded an app on her phone or somebody put it there, and she's sending money. So that's a great point, Jeff. Who cares what it's using? Now, we'll always be, as bag holders, hey, we got bags. We can't even move them. They're so heavy, some of them, right? We're moving them, and I'll pose this question to you. Which one of you were thinking to yourself when it went down to 0.10 and it took the dive down that now's the time to buy? What about when it went to 0.11 and started climbing to 0.15, right? At 15 cent USD, who thought, oh, no. What if it goes down to 0.06? So it's funny because if you check yourself and you look at when you purchased, did you purchase at that point? Did you get in? The fear overtakes human beings all the time, right? So part of us is like, we don't know where the bottom is. But you knew when it was at 0.10, that 0.15 was remarkably 33% larger, right, in value. You have to look at that, right? What's up, Tommy D-String? That's it. I'm selling. Don't sell Tommy D-String, and that's not financial advice. I get my financial advice from a cartoon bear until I hear something. If BG123 tells me, then I'll take a look at it, right? I'll do some research around it, and I'll think about it. Hey, Brady Niels, be safe. Be safe, everybody out there, right? What's when Mullet's saying? All good until some hacks her account and steals all her money. Yeah, that could be. But again, if it is blockchain based and she is protecting her keys, and this is where I always go back to the whole scenario of like, look, the mass adoption can't happen until we have some sort of a scenario where we have custody handled, right? PolySign, I know they're doing for institutional investors, but what if they're rolling something out really cool? What if they've been working on something? Look, the Wizard of Smart, David Schwartz, is involved in that, and Arthur Brito. When they're starting to work on something like that, yeah, it's institutional, but what if they come up with something? This will be a game changer. I feel like if we figure out that, and I'm not saying you don't bring up a great point, if we bring up the point that anybody can get hacked, yeah, your smartphone, if you get SIM swapped, and that happened to Nick Black. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that could occur. But until we figure it out for, the grandparents or your Aunt Betsy or somebody, or even, some of you, your mother and your father or your sister, because they're just technically deficient. It always kills me as somebody that's been around the block a little bit and grew up from the early days of computers, and I see somebody who's a 20-year-old, they don't know how to use Word. I'm like, you had this your whole life, man. You should have figured it out. You didn't have it in school. You should have known, right? And it is all about the utility. Hey, Jeff, but the price, that's what Mark Sorelli's saying. What's up, Mark? Good to see you. So it turns out BZ Comedy Channel gets his advice from a magic 8-ball he won at a carnival. That's pretty good, man, because I won a fish one time, a little goldfish, for a 5-year-old at the time, and I was like, this is cool. Bring it home, buy some food, buy a bigger fish bowl, and it'll live for, 2 weeks like they always do. Oh, no, this one lived almost 6 years. It was insane how long this fish lived. Bingo Bongo. Roy jumps in. What did you miss? You missed the whole stream, man. Basically, what the hell you been, Roy? I mean, you missed almost the entire screen, but yeah, you missed all kinds of cool stuff. We looked at a lot of stuff. I can't go back there. Seriously though, says Tommy D String, the price is a major morale killer. Yeah, it is, but let's go back to basics here, Tommy D String. It is a morale killer, right? And if you dollar cost average, and if your dollar cost average right now, let's just say your dollar cost average, let me just throw something out, and it's 35 cents, right? US dollar, right? And we're hovering the 1920. I don't even look at the price today because I don't usually do it unless I see somebody going green, and it moves up 0.00, not even a whole penny, USD. Yeah, that's true. But I want you to think about this. Whatever your dollar cost average is, that's when you were able to do it. And of course, if you had the means to, I think I'm going to sneeze, but I don't know if I'm going to, but if you had the means to buy in earlier, you were able to bring that dollar cost average down, right? And, I actually bought at 2 something in the high $2 range, but I also bought in the under 15-cent range, okay? So, yeah, I brought my dollar cost average. Am I still underwater? I'm not going to divulge that, but what I can tell you is, don't forget that last year, I think I was looking at the chart recently, and don't quote me on this, okay? But I think it was like last June, might have been May or June, we were at the 50-cent mark. Now, to us, that feels like, wait a minute, that was only less than a year ago? Yeah, it was. But if you think about it, you almost forget, it seems like 5 years ago, right? But now, if we were to go on a little mini, and you can't really call it a bull run until we eclipse what our previous high of $3 plus was, but if we go on a little bit of a run, right? Bulls get a little bit nervous, they start getting restless like we are in this captivity, right? They start making a little run. Now listen, tomorrow we wake up and it's at 0.50. How's your morale going to feel, right? How are you going to feel then? Well, you're going to be all of a sudden simply motivated. And maybe it doesn't move too much from there. The point being is that once it hits the higher side of things, there's 2 ways to always look at it. Yeah, I could have got in earlier, or yeah, I am where I am, or I sold my bags. We're not giving financial advice. I'm just giving you ways to look at it and what you might do to leverage it. Tommy D String says, well, the thing is the fundamentals are solid, but the price doesn't move with the progress. It's tied to Bitcoin. Yeah, it is right now, but it comes down to two things: adoption, right? And adoption can't happen until we have regulation. And what's happening pretty much around the world right now is at a standstill because we have this little virus COVID ID that's happening that's really put things, we're social distancing now. This is about the best we can do. We're social distancing from, on the other side of your computer screen, your phone, wherever it might be. Yes, it is the fundamentals, but you got to look at why you invested in something. Was it the use case? Bitcoin isn't going away, okay? But there isn't going to be. It's like if Bitcoin is gold, what's silver? It doesn't really work like that. You have a store of value, and being first to market in anything, you always have the advantage. Doesn't mean you're going to keep the advantage. Doesn't mean you're going to maintain the advantage. It simply means you had an advantage because you were first. And there's been plenty of examples out there where people have been first, but it didn't necessarily matter because someone who was second crushed them, okay? And I know it was John McAfee recently to put it out saying, the Model T was the Bitcoin, but it didn't stay around, right? It didn't hold the value after some time. Minus Wells, physical distancing. Jade, Western Union is dumb if they don't sign on. Well, it could be that, Jade. I look at this from a pure probably a selfish standpoint. If you're a company and you're looking at a product and it costs you next to nothing to move it, yeah, maybe it's a little silly. Maybe you call them stupid if they don't want to continue, right? I look at that and say, hey, if you're not going to move forward and it costs you nothing, what are your costs right now? Not only that, but what are your settlement problems? Now, they can sign on tomorrow, but we've seen with MoneyGram, hey, it takes a little bit of time to mature a corridor, right? Even though Mexico was huge with MoneyGram, they weren't doing 100% of the remittances down there, right? We just didn't. You gotta scale it. But I think you're bringing up a good point. It could possibly be that they're waiting for the scale to happen. Maybe they don't want to throw it because remember, Ripple's in the business of selling software, right? When they do a software install, they have, we have XRP as the coin, but we're not really privy to what their costs are. We don't know what the investment is up front. Now it's easy for MoneyGram to take this on, right? Because they have a strategic investment by Ripple, but you have costs associated, and with costs, you got to sort of figure that out. Jeff says Jeff co-host on the roundtable from On the Chain says, I look at the crypto space still fermenting. A couple more years can be like a fine wine. Oh, like a good cognac, like a nice single malt scotch. I like that analogy. I have to say that analogy is pretty solid. There's no doubt about that. And we're coming up on an hour. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you guys for the XRP Carolina, for the bomb. For the beautiful support of the channel. And Jade, thank you so much. It's so much appreciated. You are appreciated. I want to tell everybody here tonight, thank you, because you know what? You're some of the smartest people in the space. When you come in and contribute ideas, just poke each other in the eye. I don't care. You say hi to each other. We stick together, man. And it almost seems like we've come even closer together with the COVID-19 going around. Look, a little bit of advice, and it's not financial. I want you to be safe. I want you to be smart. I want you to listen to some of what's being said by wherever you are locally. What's happening in your state? What's happening in your country? In your city? Be smart. Be safe. This is Chip. That's my take. What's yours? Let me know down below. And this is Chip out.